Hello everybody, and welcome into another episode of Dynasty Top Sells, presented to you by Zilla Fantasy Elite. I am your host, Todd Hoffman, and today we're going to be looking at Josh Jacobs, running back from the Las Vegas Raiders, as one of the Dynasty Top Sells going into the 2021 season. And personally, he is my number one top sell candidate going into the 2021 season. Want this guy off your roster, get what you can. And let's go into the reasons why. As always, first, let's go look at his playerprofiler.com metrics, his workout metrics at the combine. First thing you can see there, absolutely horrendous. Typically, these guys do not produce, these poor athletic comped guys do not produce very well in the NFL. We see a 4.69 40-yard dash, almost a 4.7. 22nd percentile among running backs. That is super low. Even the size adjusted speed score is coming in at 5'10", 220, so he's got some good heft to him. Very excellent size for an NFL running back. 79th percentile BMI there as well, but the adjusted speed score still coming in at 28th percentile. Burst score, 34th percentile. Didn't do the agility stuff, and only 18 reps on the bench press. Nothing outstanding about his athletic profile. Very, very poor athletic profile. Looking at some of the other metrics, college target share, 17th percentile, very poor. Played at Alabama. Actually played behind Damian Harris while he was at Alabama. Got outplayed by Damian Harris at Alabama. Just happened to be more of a receiving back than Damian Harris while they were there. Believe that's why the Raiders ended up taking him in the first round, but yeah, we see college yards per carry even at Alabama with all of their amazing offensive linemen and everybody else producing at Alabama at an enormous clip. He was in the 43rd percentile at 5.3 yards per carry, so pretty poor there. And the college dominator rating, only 15th. As I said, he was competing for carries with Damian Harris, who hasn't done a whole lot of stuff in the NFL either. So that's a lot of strikes against him. Basically, his production profile in college was pretty poor. His athletic profile is pretty poor. Why he was selected as a first-round pick by the Las Vegas Raiders, or actually at the time, the Oakland Raiders, is kind of beyond comprehension there. He wasn't even the lead back at Alabama. But we see how the Raiders kind of draft here. They took him in the first round. Last year, they took Henry Ruggs. Drafted Lynn Bowden as well in the third round. None of their rookies were any good, and I believe that's kind of another strike against him. That was before John Gruden. When he got there, he wanted his guy. He grabbed Josh Jacobs in that first round, and that's kind of who they went with. So another reason behind it, besides the poor athletic profile, the poor production profile in college, he has had no competition for carries or workload throughout his entire 2-year career so far in Las Vegas and Oakland, I guess his first year there, but he has no competition pretty much any of the years. I believe that's going to change going into the 2021 season. The Raiders were very close to making the playoffs this year. They didn't get a whole lot out of Josh Jacobs. And as you can see here, if we look at his 2020 stats, 273 carries for only 1,065 yards, coming in at a 3.9 yard per carry clip. But what saved him, he had 12 rushing touchdowns there. He also had 45 targets, 33 receptions for 238 yards, and a pretty poor 7.21 yards per reception for a running back. Typically, you like to see that in between 8 and 10 at the minimum. Anything over 10 is considered pretty good. He's coming in at the low 7s, and no passing or no reception touchdowns there for him in the 2020 season. So he had a pretty poor season, and as I said, the Raiders were pretty close to making the playoffs there, and they weren't getting a whole lot of production out of Josh Jacobs here. I think the last 2 years, he's had his opportunity to make himself shine in the NFL, and we kind of see that he can't get it done. So let's kind of look at who we had. 2019, the Raiders had DeAndre Washington and Jalen Richard as his next two best competitors in the running back room. Those guys aren't anything special. They're nothing to write home about. In 2020, the next two closest in rush attempts were Devontae Booker and then Derek Carr. So last year, that's who he had, and he had Jalen Richard come back. So I think after that rookie season, they kind of saw he got a ton of volume, but didn't do like amazing things with the ball in his hands. I think they wanted to get a little bit more dynamic on offense. That's why you saw the Henry Ruggs and Lynn Bowden picks to try to kind of get a little bit more explosive. Josh Jacobs is not explosive. Lynn Bowden would be a lot more explosive, can pass catch as well. And then who else did they bring in 2020? They brought in Devontae Booker. And yes, Devontae Booker is the same guy that couldn't beat out C.J. Anderson the first 2 years that he was in Denver. Devontae Booker, 3.5 and 3.8 yards per carry those first 2 years in Denver. Then the following year, 34 attempts in 2018, playing behind rookies Philip Lindsay and Royce Freeman. Absolutely horrendous. And then the following year after that, got in all 16 games, only had 2 carries in 2019. He's actually behind Drew Lock, Joe Flacco, Brandon Allen, Cortland Sutton, Noah Fant, and some scrub wide receiver named Deontay Spencer in carries in 2019 on that Denver squad. So Devontae Booker was absolutely terrible, and they brought him in 2020 to help compete with Josh Jacobs, and he was the one that got the second most amount of carries behind Josh Jacobs. And guess what? Josh Jacobs, as you can see here, 3.9 yards per carry. Devontae Booker actually had 4.5 yards per carry this year and looked a lot more electric than Josh Jacobs did with the ball in his hands. It's just kind of weird that Josh Jacobs couldn't produce in this offense, but Devontae Booker was the one that came in and outproduced him on a per-touch basis, almost getting 100 attempts there and going at a 4.5 yard per clip. See Josh Jacobs only at 3.9 per clip. That's kind of what they did, and you see some of the other transactions that, besides the draft pick of Lynn Bowden and having him kind of being one of those receiving backs, they also brought in Theo Riddick in the offseason. They re-signed Jalen Richard to a pretty decent contract, and he's more of a scat back, receiving type back. And then they also brought in Booker there, who isn't that terrible in the pass game either, but just was a bad talent before he got into the Raider system and outproduced Josh Jacobs. So I think, kind of given all these things, his bad athletic profile, his bad college production, kind of what the coaches were doing after his rookie season, bringing in all these pass catching backs, that tells me he's not going to get a lot of pass work moving forward. And now that he's had 2 years just with no competition in the backfield for carries, I think that changes going into next season. I believe the Raiders, they have 7 picks, one in each round. Pick 17 overall, 48, 81st, 112, 146, 179, and 212. I do think that they'll take a later round running back, and I think they bring in one of these second-tier running backs, somebody like a Marlon Mack, in that kind of realm, maybe a Todd Gurley to kind of kick the tires on that guy. I think they're going to bring in one of these low-end veteran guys that are actually have a history of producing fairly well in the NFL and kind of know what they're doing, just to push him in the running back room and kind of split the carries and get a little bit more out of their running backs potentially. And I think they do take a later round running back in the draft as well to kind of just bolster the competition that they can get in that running back room. So I think we've seen the last of Josh Jacobs' massive volume. He was actually the RB8 in 2020 in half-point PPR, but as we see, he had tons of volume. So that RB8 was behind tons and tons of volume. He was actually number 3 in carries in the NFL behind only Dalvin Cook and Derrick Henry. And what did he do with it? Just barely over 1,000 yards rushing. Dalvin Cook had like 1,600 yards rushing. Derrick Henry had like 2,000 yards. And he wasn't that far behind him in carries, 30 or 40 carries. And then you're looking at the next closest guys to Josh Jacobs having like 30 or less carries. So he was kind of in that RB3 territory all by himself, just as close to fourth place as he was to Dalvin Cook and Derrick Henry there in first and second place. So given that, you can tell just how horrendously inefficient this guy is. And I think 2020 was his peak performance as far as what kind of volume he's going to get moving forward. I think they draft a running back late in this upcoming draft, and I believe that they're going to bring in someone like a Marlon Mack or Todd Gurley just to have a two-headed running back monster there, or so Gruden would think, and I believe that's the route that they're going to go. So Josh Jacobs, he's still got that name value. I think if you go out and try to trade him, you can say, hey, look at this dude. He was RB8 last season in half-point PPR. Their offense is kind of ascending. Derek Carr looked good. They should have more scoring opportunities. I do think that 12 touchdown, personally, like that 12 touchdowns probably going to regress, even if the offense gets better and he has no competition again next year. I think that 12 touchdown would regress. Obviously, I think they're going to bring in competition, so I think he's going to see a lot less scoring opportunities next year. And then if we look at it, he did have 45 targets in his 15 games. That's only three targets per game and 33 receptions there. So he's not even getting it done through the air. And everything that they've done was basically re-sign and bring in a bunch of pass-catching backs and draft a pass-catching running back in Lynn Bowden before they traded him away. It just kind of shows me that they don't want to use him or don't see him as being a pass-catching running back in the NFL. So that's why Josh Jacobs, the running back from the Las Vegas Raiders, is my Dynasty #1 top sell this offseason. He's got the name value. I believe people still see him as a top 10, top 12 running back. Remember, he was an RB8 on massive volume in 2020. That's not going to be the case moving forward. He's going to have competition for the rest of his career, and I don't think he's going to be anything in the NFL going into like the 2023 season. He's pretty much going to be an afterthought RB3, RB4 type of guy. So sell him now while you can. He is a top 10 to 12 running back in Dynasty in a lot of people's eyes. He's only 22 years old, so I think you can sell people on that. He's only 22, coming off an RB8 season. That offense looks to be ascending. All these guys should have more scoring opportunities next year. Get him off your squad. Sell him high right now, because no way in 2021 is he going to have anywhere near the volume that he's enjoyed and the lack of competition that he has been benefiting from since he's been in the league. So that's not going to continue moving forward, in my opinion, and that's why he's my Dynasty top sell. Thanks for watching this episode, guys. I hope you appreciated it. If you want to see more Dynasty top sells, more Dynasty top buys, some of these rookies film as they're coming in week 1, week 2, week 3 in 2021 season, we'll be putting those out along with some other Dynasty podcast content throughout the off season here. So stay tuned, lock it in, hit that subscribe button. If you enjoyed this, please hit the like button and click the bell. If you're going to subscribe, click that bell so you get every single update whenever I send out a video. Like I said, the off season, we're going to be doing some of these type of content for you, and then during the season, a lot of DFS content every single week, very accurate there, and then putting out the videos for the rookies and kind of these guys that are very young and interesting in the Dynasty community. Thanks for watching, guys. I'm Todd Hoffman for Zilla Fantasy Elite. Enjoy. Bye.